Man, I don't know about you, but it really feels like something special is happening with the Timberwolves right now. You can just feel the energy around this team changing. And today's video is going to show exactly why so many people around the NBA are looking at Minnesota in a completely different way than they did just a few years ago. Because today, we've actually got two huge Wolves stories to talk about. The first one is about the player who's completely changed the identity of this franchise and turned years of frustration into something fans can finally be proud of. The second story focuses on a veteran whose impact goes way beyond the box score. Even if not everyone around the league fully appreciates what he brings every single night. When you put these two stories together, you start to understand why this team believes its championship window is still wide open. Before we get into all of that, if you're a real Timberwolves fan, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm Henry, and our channel is still brand new. Our first goal is to reach 100 subscribers. It would be awesome to have the fans who truly believe in this team become part of this community from the very beginning. So let's start with the first story, because honestly, this is one of the biggest franchise turnarounds we've seen in the NBA over the last several years. Anthony Edwards didn't just become the face of the Minnesota Timberwolves, he completely changed what this organization represents. Think about where this franchise was before he arrived. After trading Kevin Garnett to the Boston Celtics back in 2007, the Timberwolves spent more than a decade stuck in basketball purgatory. Every season felt the same. Bad front office decisions, coaching changes, disappointing rosters, and very little hope that things would actually improve. Sure, they made the playoffs in 2018 with Jimmy Butler, but most Wolves fans don't even look back at that era with much happiness because of everything that happened behind the scenes. Outside of talented players like Karl-Anthony Towns, Kevin Love, and Al Jefferson, there just wasn't much for fans to celebrate. Instead of getting excited about playoff basketball, Minnesota fans were usually counting lottery odds and hoping another high draft pick would finally change everything. Then came the 2020 NBA draft. With the first overall pick, Minnesota selected Anthony Edwards out of Georgia. And looking back now, it's impossible to overstate how much that decision changed the future of this franchise. Before Edwards arrived, the Timberwolves had reached the playoffs only once in the previous 16 seasons. Since drafting him, they've missed the postseason only one time, and that was during his rookie year. Of course, Anthony deserves a ton of credit, but the front office also played a huge role in helping him develop. Early in his career, he wasn't asked to carry everything by himself. He had veterans and established players around him like Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Patrick Beverley, and Ricky Rubio. Those guys helped him understand what winning basketball looked like and gave him a solid foundation while he was still learning the league. But it didn't take long before everyone realized this was Anthony Edwards' team. His true breakout moment came during the first-round playoff series against the Memphis Grizzlies in 2022. Even though Minnesota lost that series, Anthony looked like the best player on the floor against a group that included Karl-Anthony Towns, Ja Morant, and Jaren Jackson Jr. At just 20 years old. He averaged 25.2 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 3 assists in his very first playoff series. That's when people around the NBA stopped seeing him as just another young talent and started talking about him as one of the future faces of the league. From there, the Timberwolves kept improving the roster around him. The organization traded for Rudy Gobert, then they added Mike Conley and Nickel Alexander-Walker. Those moves helped create one of the strongest supporting casts Anthony Edwards has ever had. The results speak for themselves. Since then, Minnesota has reached 2 Western Conference Finals and 1 Western Conference semifinal. Now there's even more excitement after acquiring LaMelo Ball. There are already people around the league who believe this version of the Timberwolves has another level it can still reach. And honestly, it's hard not to see why. What's even more incredible is how the perception of the franchise has changed. For years, Minnesota wasn't viewed as a destination for superstar players. Now that conversation is completely different. This summer, reports even suggested that LeBron James had the Timberwolves on his free agent short. Just think about how unbelievable that would have sounded 10 years ago. On top of that, Minnesota has reportedly been among the teams that Giannis Antetokounmpo would seriously consider signing a long-term extension with. That's a massive change in reputation. The ownership group led by Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lore deserves credit for helping stabilize the franchise. And head coach Chris Finch has built one of the NBA's most consistent winning cultures. even if he still receives criticism from parts of the fan base. But at the center of everything is Anthony Edwards. Without him, none of this happens. He's become the leader, the superstar, the player everyone believes can eventually become the greatest Timberwolf in franchise history. Honestly, if he keeps this trajectory going, it's easy to imagine his number 5 hanging in the rafters one day with a statue standing outside Target Center. Now, let's move to today's second story, because while Anthony Edwards grabs most of the headlines, another player continues to play an enormous role in everything this team is trying to build. That's Rudy Gobert. Minnesota made the decision to keep the 34-year-old center for the 2026 through 2027 season. And while some people questioned that decision because of his age, there's a very strong argument that it was actually one of the smartest moves the organization made this offseason. Chris Finch has been saying this for a long time. After Minnesota's 119-116 win over the Denver Nuggets back in November of 2024, Finch described Gobert in a way that still defines him today. He said Rudy Gobert is one of the most mentally tough players he has ever coached. He said his teammates love him because he never backs down. That mentality has become part of the Timberwolves' identity. If you go back to that Denver game, the box score doesn't fully explain Gobert's impact. Nikola Jokic still finished with 26 points, 13 assists, and 9 rebounds while being defended mostly by Gobert. On paper, that doesn't sound dominant, but basketball isn't always about the numbers. In the final moments of that game, Gobert grabbed a huge defensive rebound, calmly knocked down 2 clutch free throws to put Minnesota ahead by 3, then defended Jokic on the final possession and forced the miss that sealed the victory. Those are winning plays. The timing couldn't have been more important. Remember, that game happened shortly after the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. The entire fan base was still emotional. People were questioning the direction of the franchise. If Minnesota loses that game, maybe the entire conversation around that season changes. Instead, Gobert helped stabilize everything. The Wolves went on to win 3 of their next 4 games, and at least temporarily, the criticism surrounding the Towns trade quieted down. That's exactly why Gobert remains so valuable today. This isn't his first major transition with the Timberwolves. He's lived through the criticism after his original trade to Minnesota. He experienced the emotional fallout following the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. Now he's helping guide the team through another new chapter after the arrival of LaMelo Ball. This will already be his 3rd time adapting to a new offensive system while continuing to anchor one of the league's best defenses with new teammates around him. Just as importantly, he's expected to continue setting the culture inside the locker room through his professionalism, work ethic, and leadership. Chris Finch reinforced that point again in May of 2025, after the Timberwolves eliminated the Los Angeles Lakers 4-1. Finch said, "He drives winning. You can not like who he is, how he does it, what he looks like. He doesn't listen to the outside noise. We don't listen to the outside noise. No one is happier for Rudy than his teammates." That tells you everything you need to know about how he's viewed inside that organization. Yes, keeping a 34-year-old center always carries some risk. Nobody is pretending age doesn't matter. But Minnesota isn't simply betting on athleticism. They're betting on leadership. They're betting on experience. They're betting on mental toughness. They're betting on a player who has already helped establish a championship culture that has produced 5 playoff series. Victories over the last 4 years despite multiple roster changes. When you combine everything we've talked about today, it's actually pretty incredible. Anthony Edwards transformed the entire direction of this franchise and made the Timberwolves relevant again. Rudy Gobert helped build the culture that allowed that success to become sustainable. One is the superstar leading the future. The other is the veteran helping hold everything together while that future continues to grow. If LaMelo Ball fits the way Minnesota hopes, and if Anthony Edwards continues ascending toward true NBA superstardom, this team absolutely has a chance to stay among the Western Conference elite for years to come. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Anthony Edwards is already on his way to becoming the greatest player in Timberwolves history? Do you believe keeping Rudy Gobert was the right move for another championship run? Drop your thoughts down in the comments, because I know this fan base has plenty to say. If you enjoyed today's update, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join our community. The channel is still brand new, and our first goal is reaching 100 subscribers. So, if you truly believe in the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves and want to be part of this community from the very beginning, we'd love to have you with us. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.